I'm 18 years old, male, and I was adopted when I was 5 years old. I don't know anything about my biological parents. No names, no memory of their faces, no story. Just a blank space where most people tend to have roots. The family that adopted me already had 3 daughters. From what I was told, they kept trying for a boy and ended up with girl after girl. So after 3 daughters, they decided to adopt me. The missing piece, the son they always said they wanted. In the beginning, it actually felt like I belonged. We'd take family photos, they bought me clothes, signed me up for sports. I thought it was real. I wanted so very badly for it to be real. But it didn't take long before the cracks started to show. My sisters never really accepted me. The oldest one, Alicia, was the ringleader. She convinced the younger 2, Maria and Juliet, that I didn't belong. She used to say our parents would start favoring me just because I was a boy, and she pushed that idea hard until it stuck with all the kids. I guess it really worked because eventually, all 3 of them made it clear they didn't want me around. When it came time to assign bedrooms, there was this huge family argument. My sisters didn't want me on the same floor as them. They said it would be weird. So my parents, who supposedly adopted me to make me part of their family, gave in without much of a fight. They set me up in a spare room in the basement. It was small, cold, the kind of places you store boxes, not raise a kid. But I tried to take it all in stride. I figured maybe that's just how siblings acted. I didn't want to complain, I just wanted to belong. But down there, it felt like I'd disappeared. The girls started calling me names. Cellar rat seemed to be their favorite. It was stupid and childish, but it stung more than I ever let on. And worse, it wasn't just them. Something had shifted with my parents too. It was like the second I was out of sight, I fell from their minds. They stopped noticing me altogether. By the time I turned 13, it was just like I was existing under their roof. Not a son, not a brother, just someone that lived in their basement. They stopped checking in on me. They never asked me about my schoolwork, never attended parent-teacher conferences. They missed every appointment, every milestone. Half the time, they wouldn't even call me up for dinner. I'd come upstairs and find the kitchen already cleaned up, table wiped down. If I was lucky, there'd be cold leftovers in the fridge, but usually not. Birthdays came and went with nothing, not even a happy birthday, let alone a gift. One Christmas, they flat out told me that they had forgotten to buy anything for me, but promised we'd go out shopping together sometime in January. Well, of course, that never happened. I don't know how to describe what it's like to be a guest in the house where you're supposed to be a son. Every day felt like proof that I didn't matter, that I'd never really mattered to them. And still, I don't hate anyone under that roof. Not my parents, not even my sisters. If anything, I'm glad they have a home where they feel loved and safe. I wouldn't wish this emptiness on anyone. But I can't help but wonder, why did they ever adopt me in the first place? Why go through all that effort just to throw me away? I think maybe they liked the idea of having a son, of rounding out their family, but when the reality set in, when I didn't just fit seamlessly into their picture-perfect world, they quietly gave up on me. Pushing me into the basement was the moment that they made that choice. That was the moment I stopped being family and started being something easier to ignore. So I've decided that tonight, I'm leaving. I've packed my bag. I'm going to crash at a friend's place for a while, then look for a job. Figure out a way to rent a room and then start from there. I don't have much, but I think I have enough to get by. I'm going to write out a letter and leave it in the basement, in my room, I guess. Though I doubt they'll even notice it, or me being gone. I could be gone for days and they'd probably just think I was downstairs the entire time. I don't know what I'm supposed to write in a letter like that. Thanks for taking me in. Sorry I wasn't enough. Maybe I'll just say the truth though. I tried. I really did, but you made it clear I was never part of this family. I don't feel anger, just a dull sort of acceptance of the entire thing. I don't expect anything from these people anymore. Not apologies, not memories, certainly not love. I'm done trying to fit into a home that stopped having space for me years ago. And once I walk out that door tonight, I don't think I'll ever come back. Whatever future I have ahead of me, I know that it doesn't include them. And if they ever do notice I'm gone, if one day they glance down the basement steps and wonder why it's so quiet, they'll find a letter where I used to lay my head. It won't be a long one. It won't be angry. It'll just be the truth. I came into this house as a child hoping to be loved. I grew up learning how to be invisible. And now I'm leaving the same way I lived here. Quietly, without a sound. They won't hear from me again. This chapter of my life ends tonight. And once that door closes behind me, it stays closed for good. To whoever reads this, I just want to say thank you. I've never really told my full story, not out loud and certainly not like this. But with the little time I have left, I guess I wanted to leave something behind, even if it's just a post on Reddit, even if it's only read by strangers. At least then, someone might remember me. My name doesn't matter. I'm just a 17-year-old kid born into a wealthy East Asian family, the kind where success is expected and tradition is everything. Feelings aren't exactly something you talk about. My father ran a multi-million-dollar corporation, one that he had built from the ground up, and that came with money, status, and power. But at home, he was a cruel man. He hurt both my mother and myself in ways I won't get into here, because honestly, even now, I can't dive into it out loud without feeling like I'm betraying some unspoken family rule. My dad wanted me to be great, a leader, a man who could take over his company one day. And despite the beatings, the coldness, he tried to shape me into that person. Then, when I was 12, he died. They said he had worked himself to death, flying constantly between Korea and the US, managing just about everything alone. Toward the end, I remember just how sick he looked, even if no one dared to talk about it. It was clear that he had burned himself out chasing the future. After he died, my mother took over his role, not in business, but in grooming me to take his place. She sent me to the best schools in America, not because I wanted to go, but because it was what was expected. I was barely a teenager when I was packed up and sent off across the world. Every day, I missed home. I missed my friends, my room, even small things like the smell of my favorite fast food place right down the street from our house. But it didn't matter. My job was to be excellent. Academically, I did okay. My grades were good. My teachers respected me, but I hated every second of it. I was a stranger in a country that I didn't understand, surrounded by people I couldn't relate to, with no real way to say just how alone I felt. Then, in what was supposed to be my final year of high school, since I was set to graduate early, I asked to transfer to a sister school across the country. I told my mom it was for academic reasons, but really, I just wanted to have my own say in the matter. I wanted to feel like my own person for once. And I found that, surprisingly, in the last place I thought I would. At that school is where I met her. She was a year below me, a scholarship student, and from the same country as me. We bonded over little things, the language we spoke, both feeling like outsiders but together. She was quiet, smart, and gentle, nothing like the people who used to surround me back home. And she was kind, genuinely that selfless kind of kind. That was rare in my world, maybe the rarest thing of all. And I fell for her, hard. I didn't think someone like me, a quiet, awkward, already worn down guy, had a chance, but I gathered my courage and asked her out. To my absolute disbelief, she said yes. Now, our relationship wasn't some perfect fairy tale. A lot of other students didn't like it. She didn't come from money, and people whispered things behind our backs. That kind of elitist nonsense had followed me across many continents. But for a few short months, I felt like I had something good, something that was just mine. I let myself believe that maybe things would be okay, that I could go to college, take over the family business one day, and maybe even build a life with her. We used to laugh about it, how we were living out our own cheesy K-drama. For once, I allowed myself to dream. That's right around the time that everything fell apart. I got sick, really sick, terminally sick. The diagnosis hit me like a punch to the chest. When doctors found out, they gave me 4 months to live at most. That was a few months back, and most of my time is gone now. I can feel my body failing, and it's not something that I can hide anymore. My cough isn't just from a cold. My weakness can't be passed off as a pulled muscle. I feel the mask is slipping, and no matter how much I try to pretend I'm still okay, I'm not. I didn't want her to watch me die. I didn't want her to carry that weight, so I ended things with about as little explanation as possible. I know that it hurt her. I saw it in her face when I pulled away, but I told myself that it was the right thing to do, that she'd move on faster and hurt less if I wasn't there. She deserves a full life, not one defined by a boy who died far too young. I think about her every day, though. And now, as I sit here in what I can only assume are my last few weeks on this earth, I've started looking back at everything. I keep wondering what I'd do differently if I had more time, but weirdly, I don't think I'd change that much. I didn't choose the cards I was dealt. None of us really do. I think that's the hardest part to accept. Life isn't fair, but it's not inherently cruel either. It just is. The universe doesn't care whether you're good or bad. It doesn't care if you try your hardest. It's indifferent to it. And for a while, that used to make me angry. But now, I don't have the energy for anger. I'll die alone. My mother is back home raising my younger brother now, probably grooming him the same way she tried with me. I don't blame her. She's never really known how to be present, not with me. My parents were never emotionally available either, not to me or to one another. Sometimes I think about whether I should pray or ask for some divine sign, but the truth is, I've never believed in a God. Not once. Not even when I was little. I wish I did. It would be easier to believe that this is part of some greater plan, but I don't. I'll die just as I lived, alone, quietly, and mostly forgotten, except for the few beautiful months I spent with someone who loved me for who I really was. If there is something after this, I hope that I get to see her again, even if just for a second. I'd like that more than anything. If you've made it this far, thank you. Truly. You don't know me and I don't know you, but somehow that doesn't matter here. Just knowing that someone heard my story even once makes me feel a little less invisible. Maybe that's all any of us really want in the end. Thank you. I'll miss you even if I never knew you. Signed, Anonymous. For the sake of this story, my name is Amelie. I'm 26, and I have a 5-year-old son. 2 years ago, everything in my life came crashing down. I found out my husband, now my ex, had been cheating on me with a coworker of his, a woman that we'll call Bethany. He was 29 at the time. She was 28. I was 2 months pregnant with our second child when I found out, and as if that wasn't enough to take in, I also found out Bethany was pregnant too. Of course, with my husband's child. I ended up miscarrying shortly after, and once all that transpired, he walked right out of our home to go play family with her. No warning, just gone. Since then, it's been about 2 years. Their child's now a toddler. My ex and I barely speak, and that's 100% fine by me. But the one unexpected blessing in all of this? His family, specifically my mother-in-law. She stayed loyal to me and my son. She completely cut them off. Wanted nothing to do with her son or his affair partner. and definitely nothing to do with their baby. My mother-in-law has always been one of the most supportive people in my life. I honestly consider her family more than some of my own. We're incredibly close, and her and my parents are even best friends now. She loves my son fiercely. He's actually her entire world, which obviously drives Bethany insane. She can't stand the fact that her child won't ever know the love of grandparents. She's bitter about it and vocal. But hey, at least her son has a dad, right? Anyway, this is where things start to get messy. My mother-in-law's health has been declining. She's been very ill for a while now, and she recently updated her will. Originally, her son was going to inherit everything since he's her only child. But now, that's fundamentally changed. She's decided that my son will inherit her house, her vacation villa, and a large portion of her money. The rest of her money and all of her personal belongings are going to come to me. Until my son turns 18, I'll manage everything through a trust. If something were to happen to me, my parents would take over that responsibility. That's not something they're aware of at this point, but it's how it would go down. None of this has been shared with my ex or Bethany. As far as they know, nothing's changed. But of course, once they found out that she was sick, they suddenly came crawling back. My ex started begging for forgiveness. Bethany, who once called my mother-in-law every name in the book, suddenly decided to play sweet and devoted. She's even started forcing her presence into the house, bringing the baby around and pretending everything's normal. It's transparent though. They want the money, the house, the inheritance, everything they can get their hands on. And my mother-in-law knows it. She's bedridden now, but she told me that if she's going out, she wants to go out with a bang. She hasn't said anything directly to them, hasn't revealed the changes to the will, but she's playing along, pretending to tolerate their presence. Meanwhile, she tells me privately that she still despises both of them for tearing our family apart. She's doing this because she wants justice, maybe even a little revenge on my behalf. Bethany, for her part, has become increasingly smug. She keeps dropping hints about how her child is going to go to a great college, thanks to Grandma, and how he's going to grow up with every advantage imaginable. She's even been overheard on the phone talking about redecorating the house when they move in after my mother-in-law passes, complaining about how tacky my mother-in-law's current decor is. And worst of all, she said she can't wait to finally take down all those pictures of my son. The joke's on her, though. That house? It's going to my son. Nothing about it changes until he turns 18, and even then, it's going to stay in his hands. It's his grandmother's legacy, her home, her love, in every wall and corner, and I'll make sure that he honors that. I can't exactly tell anyone about this arrangement yet, and I know that when the day comes, it's going to be bittersweet. Yeah, it'll feel good knowing those two won't see a cent, but I'll have lost one of the most important women in my life. My mother-in-law means everything to me. I love her like my own. And while this plan of hers brings a little bit of closure, it's also heartbreaking, because I dread the day that we lose her. She told me she needs to do this so she can rest peacefully, that she wants my son to grow up knowing he was loved, always. She's carrying this particular weight from her own childhood. Her father had an affair too, and he always prioritized his other children over her. That's a pain that she'll never forget, and she can't stand the idea of letting history repeat itself. She doesn't want her son's betrayal to go unacknowledged, and she wants my son to remember that he mattered, that he came from strong women who protected him, even when others around him failed. I just hope he never forgets that. If people are interested, I might share an update someday. Hopefully, that won't be for a long time though. Edit. Honestly, I didn't expect so many people to read this. I figured a handful maybe, but thank you to all of those who have shared kind words, advice, and support. To those out there saying I should convince my mother-in-law to include Bethany's child, that's not my job. That baby is a product of betrayal, and a sign of the moment my life started to unravel. He's also the reason my son hasn't had a father in over 2 years. I don't blame the kid. but I'm not going to prioritize him either. That's not my role in this. My mother-in-law, she's made up her mind. Her entire childhood was ruined by her own father favoring his affair children. She has no interest in repeating that nightmare. She's even told me that her son should have known better. He lived through that pain with her. And still, he turned around and did the exact same thing. So no, I won't pretend I'm some perfect person here. I'm happy my son will be taken care of. That's something I'm not going to apologize for. Thank you again to those who have listened. I've actually been reading some of your comments out loud to my mother-in-law. She's enjoyed them just as much as I have, and we've had some good laughs together. It seems like she really appreciates the support as well. My wife had a stroke during our Easter dinner. She was only 37, her birthday just 2 weeks away. We'd made a nice meal together. Nothing fancy, just something to celebrate the holiday. Right in the middle of dinner, she paused, said she felt funny, and stopped eating. Then she started losing feeling on her left side. Within seconds, everything changed. I called 911 and she was rushed to the hospital. Due to viral precautions at the time, I wasn't allowed to go with her. So I sat in a sterile waiting room for hours, alone, just trying to stay upright while waiting for someone, anyone to tell me what was happening. Eventually, a doctor came in and told me the situation. My wife had a massive hemorrhage in her brain, and they had to remove part of her skull to relieve the pressure on her brainstem. They managed to remove most of the blood, but the damage had already been done. She was stable, but unresponsive. Technically not in a coma, but in what doctors called a stupor state. She could respond to pain using her right arm, but just barely. Then she would drift back into unresponsiveness. And that was it. I wasn't allowed to see her. Even as her husband, I had to stay home, relying entirely on periodic updates from both nurses and doctors. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I just sat at home crying constantly, trying not to scream. The house itself was too quiet, except for the dogs, our 2 little ones, a corgi and a Pomeranian, who barked like they were looking for her. I found myself sobbing as I told them over and over that she couldn't hear them right now. We also had 2 Persian cats, ex-show cats that we'd adopted from a woman who could no longer care for them. They were fussy, high maintenance, and usually her responsibility. But now, they were all on me. It was like everything in our world had kept moving forward, except for her. I remember being extra crushed by something so small and stupid. We'd just finished doing laundry the day before, so nothing in our house even smelled like her anymore. I kept wandering from room to room, just trying to catch some trace of her. I didn't have much of a support network. My parents died when I was a teenager. She was my person. We weren't particularly close with many others. On her side, her mother had been killed during a burglary 9 years earlier. She wasn't close with her father, but I still kept him updated. He deserved to know. The hospital started letting me do virtual visits through video calls. That helped. I just talked to her, tell her about the pets, the things happening at home, like how one of the cats decided to throw up all night. The first time I saw her breathing through the screen, I nearly broke down. She looked exactly like she did when she'd sleep next to me. Peaceful, yet so far away. At first, there were small flickers of hope. Her right arm was moving more and more. Her eyes started responding to light. There was a moment when her blood pressure spiked during touch. One nurse said that might be a reaction. That gave me a shred of hope, because before all of this, she was never really a fan of being touched, unless it was by me. That small detail somehow made her feel closer. But then things plateaued. Progress stalled. She was still intubated, still on a feeding tube, and the doctor started gently preparing me for the possibility that this might be long-term. They talked about tracheotomies, permanent feeding tubes. They stopped using words like recovery and started using phrases like persistent vegetative state. Still though, I held out hope. I waited for that miracle. I begged for it. At night, I'd whisper to her through the video screen, "I need you to come back, please." But it wasn't coming. Her MRI showed worsening damage, acute ischemia. Parts of her brain, the big central parts, weren't getting any oxygen, and those areas wouldn't heal. They don't grow back. The EEG showed signs of deterioration. The doctor said she might be able to open her eyes again someday, but the person she was gone. She'd never return to herself. She'd never come back to me. I remember the moment they said she could stay on life support for months, maybe even years, but she'd never wake up. And I knew then what she'd want. We'd talked about it long before any of this happened, in passing, like people do when they're young and think they have decades ahead of them. She didn't want to live that way. Not trapped in her body, not forever hooked up to machines. They eventually moved her into hospice, and the next day, I got to be with her. That was the last time I ever got to hold my wife's hand. She passed about 24 hours after this. Now that she's gone, I can't help but remember something she used to say during her darkest moments. When she was feeling really low, when things got hard, she'd look at me and say, "But I want to stay with you." And now she can't. And I can't stop hearing those words. I know people say grief gets easier, that time dulls the pain, but right now, it just feels like I'm going through the motions, trying to remember how to live in a world that doesn't have her in it. She was everything to me, and now she's gone. Please, if you love someone, make sure to tell them often. Hug them tight. Smell their clothes. Remember their voice, because one day, without warning, that ordinary dinner you shared might be the last moment you ever get together.